Sherilyn Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 258 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. And today I am talking with Liz Brunner about how to own the room with executive presence and powerful communication. So I had the opportunity to meet Liz for the first time in this interview after having explored what she has to offer at Brunner Academy. And I have to tell you all that one of the topics that comes up a lot inside of our coaching community, the women who, are engaged in a variety of different coaching programs with Brilliant Balance, is this notion of executive presence. And what does it really mean to, telegraph competence and confidence and have this ability to own the room? And so when I crossed paths with Liz's work, I was like, this is our person, right? This is who we're going to talk to really understand what are the components of executive presence and what are the components of that powerful language that we can use when we want to have influence. So Liz has a really stellar background. She is an author and an executive communications coach and a motivational speaker and a podcast host today. But prior to that, she was an Emmy award-winning journalist, and her television career, it spans 28 years and has just a ton of really great stories, including her interview with President Barack Obama and cultural icons like Oprah Winfrey and others. So it's really fun to get to be in a one-on-one conversation like I got to be with somebody who has had so many interesting experiences rooted in her communication skills, right? Rooted in her ability to carry that conversation. And today, Liz is the founder of Brunner Academy and the CEO and founder of Brunner Communications. And both of those organizations are really dedicated to helping people find their authentic voice and tell their story and lead with presence. And I know that these are all things that we care about as a Brilliant Balance community. So I'm really excited to share Liz with you today in this conversation that I had with her. I would encourage you to check out her podcast, which is called Live Your Best Life with Liz Brunner. You can find it in all the places podcasts are. And then in the show notes of this episode, we're linked to a couple of other things that Liz references in the interview, including a promo code that you can use to get a discount on any programming through Brunner Academy. So take a listen. I hope you learned something valuable. Here is my interview with Liz Brunner. So Liz, welcome to the Brilliant Balance Show. I am so delighted to have you here. And I wanted you to start by telling us a little bit about your day today. What have you been up to before this interview?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. It's so lovely to finally meet you. I know we've had this in the works in the planning stages for quite a while. Well, today, I guess I don't really have a typical day, but since you asked about specifically today has been a day when I have been preparing for some of my one-on-one clients, meaning I'm putting their lesson plans together because I always come into a session with a prepared lesson, knowing how I want to move the dial to help my clients. I've also had a consult call with a new client whom I'm onboarding and doing some one-on-one work. And I'm also preparing for a podcast recording of someone who's going to be a guest on my show that we're going to record next week. So that's been my morning. Mm-hmm. And it's a 1:10 in Eastern time where I am in Boston, Massachusetts. So, and then of course I did a workout this morning too. So that's been my morning thus far. And now here we are.
I love it. I love a little bit of time for yourself and then right Absolutely. Into the work for the day. Yeah.
And let me not forget one other thing. I started my day with the same thing I do every day with my journaling. So that's a big piece of it before I get to the workout, before I get to the work.
So great. As we're recording this today, the episode that aired today was with a guest who talks about that morning practice of connecting with herself being so deeply grounding and something that she can't imagine starting her day without. And I know a lot of our listeners are still toying with what does a morning practice really look like? What are the things that are essential? So every time somebody echoes one of those practices, I find it like helps other people give themselves permission to do some of the same things. Yeah.
I agree 100%. And for me, I've been journaling, I think something like 40 years now. That's a long time.
Do you have them all?
I don't have them all anymore. I have the last probably decade or so and a few others before then, because after several moves, I'm like, what am I going to do with all these journals? Because I used to handwrite in them. And then when I started doing so much traveling with clients, I was like, I can't keep carrying these journals around. So I started doing it in my computer, which I don't love, but it's okay because now I have it. Right. Number one. Number two, I'm always with my computer's always with me, but I find it to be a very cathartic process. It's a healing process. It's a learning process. It's a cathartic process. Yeah. And I write very extemporaneously, meaning I don't think about how I'm going to say something. I just write it out as if my brain is saying it. And if my fingers can keep up, and then I couldn't really read my handwriting anymore, which is another reason why I stopped handwriting.
That's what happens to me. It becomes illegible because I'm thinking faster than I can write.
Exactly. Yes. It's very true.
I love that practice. I also have a lot of journals and most of them are saved somewhere. And it's really fun to look back through what your brain was thinking at a different era of time. Yeah.
I encourage people to go back and look at them, because at the time that you may have had this extemporaneous conversation that you were just putting out there into your journal, you may not have been able to connect the dots at that time. But when you go back and reread some things, it's light bulbs can sometimes go off and aha moments. And oh, wow, now I get it. Now I get it. Now I understand. And that's one of the beauties of journaling. It's kind of your own self-help therapy, right?
Exactly. So let's get a little background on your career. You've referenced a couple of things you're doing these days, but I would love for you to just kind of take us through the story of where did your career start and then sort of the meandering path to where you are today, because there are some really great stories buried in this.
Well, it is a meandering path, to use your word. It is a very non-traditional path. So currently, I'm an executive communications coach. I have my own business, Brunner Communications, where I work with people one-on-one or in workshops. And it can be anything from leadership to public speaking to presence to storytelling. Oh, yes, a little media training is thrown in for good measure, too. But it all began when I was a music major from Lawrence University's Conservatory of Music. And I taught high school choral music for a couple of years outside of the Chicago area. And I never thought of doing anything else but singing, performing. I was singing semi-professionally with a group in the Chicago area, and we toured Europe, Austria, Germany, Switzerland. We sang for the Pope in Vatican Square, which was pretty awesome. And so I did that for a few years and then felt like organically, Cheryl Ann, there was something more I was supposed to do. I didn't know what that was. I had absolutely no clue of what that was, but I just felt I had to go explore that. So I left the teaching profession as much as I loved it and worked in retail. You know, somebody's got to pay the bills. Yes. And I started trying to figure out what I was going to do with my next chapter. So chapter 2 was the retail chapter. Chapter 1 was being the high school teacher. And along the way, I started reading a book called Who's Hiring Who by Richard Lathrop. And he talked about informational interviews. I had never heard of such a thing. But I love informational interviews. And to all of our listeners out there, informational interviews can be incredibly helpful. And I had this idea. I thought, well, I wonder if I could do something in television. Now, mind you, I'd only done one television commercial for the Pontiac Grand Prix when I was Miss Illinois, 1979. It happened to be my favorite car, and I got to drive 4 different ones that year of my reign. But I thought, I wonder if I could do something in television. Did I need to go back to college and get another degree? Did what I thought I wanted to do, maybe public relations, even exist? And fast forward, I went to 2 different television stations in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, which was where I was living at the time. One was a CBS affiliate, one was an NBC station. And over the course of about 6 months of conversation of asking those questions of, is something like what I want to do even exist? Do I need to go back to school, get another degree? A position was literally created for me. And I was the community relations liaison. Doesn't that sound so impressive?
I love it. Yes, yes.
And basically, I was going to kind of coordinate the speakers bureau, which meant that everybody who was on air, a reporter or an anchor, I would help them figure out what speaking engagements they were supposed to do. And I was supposed to put the public service announcements on the air. I was supposed to start writing public service announcements. I didn't know how to do that. And so little by little, they said, oh, we want you to voice these in the sound booth. And then, oh, we want you to write these and we want you to be on TV with them. Oh, we want you to have your own little talk show. Oh, and now we want you to do the weather. We had a 3-women weather team. I probably the only one in the country. And honestly, Cheryl Ann, it was the best training I could have ever had for live TV because there's no script. And
changes all the time.
Changes all the time. But I never said no. Anytime they ever asked me to do something, I said yes. Now, I'd go home and freak out about it. Right. Say, what am I saying yes to? But the fact of the matter is, I have such a firm belief that just because we've never done something before, it doesn't mean we can't. We just have to try. Are you going to be perfect at everything? Absolutely not. But that's not the goal. The goal is to figure out what do you like? What don't you like? What are you good at? What is your purpose? What is your passion? So I was at that first station for 3 years. Then I got called to the station in Tampa, which was another CBS affiliate. So I went from the 75th market to the 13th market, and I was in Tampa for 5 years. And I came in as the director of community relations, and I was the only female in upper management. Talk about the old boys network and trying to push through that glass ceiling. Holy cow. And then one thing led to another, and they said, we want you to also be the morning anchor, which meant I got up at 2 a.m. I was at work at 3 a.m. We were on the air at 5 a.m. until 7 a.m. And then I was in the newsroom till about 9 or 9:30 after the morning meeting. Then I went upstairs and put my manager's hat on. I worked about 80 hours a week. It was insane. I don't know why I said yes to that.
I mean, it sounds so glam until you get into the hours, right? And then not glam anymore. Yeah.
It's not glam anymore. And that's one of the things I love to talk to students about because they think, oh, TV's so glamorous and you make so much money and you do this. Hello, not anymore. I mean, it's a tough dog-eat-dog world. So I was in Tampa for 5 years, and then I got the call to go to Boston, WCBB, News Center 5, Channel 5, and it was the 5th largest market in the country. And I started off in Chronicle, which was a news magazine show, loved being on Chronicle. And then again, I was asked to be the morning news anchor. I have a sign on my back, Cheryl Ann, that says, please
put me on the morning news. Right?
Please give me 2 jobs. Exactly. And did that for a few years and finally said, we can't keep doing this. It's too many hours a week. And so I went completely to the news department. And I had a 20-year career in Boston, all told 28 years in the television industry. And a lot of people would say, how did you go from being a music teacher to being a television reporter, journalist? It's all storytelling.
It's all stories. Yeah.
Right?
And performance.
And performance. So, I was singing stories. Now I was speaking the stories. And now in my business, I'm helping other people tell their stories, their content.
Love it. And using your voice, right? All the way through this, there's a sense of knowing your voice and how powerful it can be and how it can influence people, whether it's through your art or through the news, right? And I love that thread that's pulled. I think a lot of people who have multifaceted careers, sometimes it can look jumpy at first blush. You kind of take a look at it. How does one lead together? But that thread is there, and it's really part and parcel of your personal brand. Is these exceptional communication skills?
Yeah, truly is a thread that continues. And I always love to help people connect the dots of their lives. What are the themes and patterns that emerge? What are the rivers that run through your life that you can begin to see these patterns of things that maybe when you were a child, you wanted to do this? And are you connected to that in some way today? How does it all come together? Because it often does. If we're willing to step back, put ourselves in that witness position, and also be very honest with ourselves. Because it does take courage to look at your life and go, okay, what does
I
this
see the
look
narrative?
like?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me, you clearly have such powerful communication skills and you've had so many opportunities to leverage them throughout this long career. I'm wondering if you always knew that it was a gift that you had, or if there was ever a time where you thought like, I'm not really sure I have the skills to do this level of communication. I know there's pretty pretty famous story about you interviewing a president that may have been a time when those skills might have felt like they could fail you.
Yes. And you're talking about my interview with President Barack Obama. Took me 4 years to get that interview, mind you. And I got the interview finally at the beginning of his second term. And people in the newsroom made fun of me for years. Oh, there goes Liz. She's right in the White House again, asking for an interview with the president. Of course, when I got it, there were people who said, well, why am I not going? Excuse me? Did you write the president every few weeks? But that was an amazing interview. And, certainly I had to rely on all of my communication skills. And there are moments when you do get a little bit nervous when you do something like that, when you're interviewing the president. And I think, all of the folks who are listening today can probably appreciate, maybe not that they've ever interviewed a president, but they could understand, hey, whoa, this is a big deal.
High stakes moments.
High stakes moment. Mm-hmm. And we all have those high stakes moments in our lives, whether you're interviewing the president or you're talking to a boss or you have to give a pitch or a presentation. Mm-hmm. We all have high stakes moments. So I was a little nervous. But one of the things that I think helped get me through, first of all, I had to rely on my communication skills. Secondly, I am so prepared when I do any kind of an interview. And that's just in my DNA. And I just do tons and tons of homework. I still do tons of homework when I have guests on my podcast, when I'm interviewing them. I want to know as much as I can. And I think that what happens in that situation also for me, I told myself, Liz, this is an amazing opportunity that you will probably never, ever have again. Enjoy the moment. Be present for as much of it as you possibly can be. And I kept grounding myself with that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I love that because it's so easy in those moments to sort of float out of our bodies and be so worried about our performance that we're not having the experience anymore. Right? But staying deeply grounded in the moment so you can have the experience is like the whole reason you wanted to be there in the first place. Yeah, I love that.
And what's also special about that is it doesn't matter what your politics are. To interview a sitting president, that's a pretty amazing opportunity for which I am eternally grateful that I had that chance and that I fought for it for years in order to get it.
Yes, it has to be a small number of people who can lay claim to that experience. And I do think no matter who it would be, there's Queen Elizabeth, right, just passing. People who had the chance to interview her talk about what a poignant moment it is that they can look back on. You mentioned, the audience with the Pope. I think there are these times where we sort of recognize we're in the presence of an office bigger than ourselves, regardless of who's holding it at the time. Yeah.
I agree.
Do you ever find yourself saying, I just need a minute to breathe? While the whole idea of meditation can sound totally intimidating, I've found that stepping away from the chaos of life, even just for a few minutes, is incredibly restorative. So if you're short on time, but could use a few moments of peace right about now, listen to my 5-minute meditation for working moms. It'll help you clear your head and come back to your day feeling centered and refreshed. Head over to brilliant-balance.com/breathe. Press play and settle in for a few mini moments of peace right now. And your communication skills are something that I guess maybe ease the discomfort of that moment. If you can lean on, that you can trust that those skills won't fail you in those key moments. And I think communication skills, which is the whole reason we have you on today, transcend, our work lives, our personal lives. We talk a lot in Brilliant Balance about courageous conversations and being able to navigate them, whether they're with a spouse or partner or a family member or even a neighbor. That ability to trust yourself that the words will come and that you won't resort to what I call low power language, right? Where you sort of lose yourself in the moment. To me, it's very linked to executive presence. And so I wonder if you could talk about how communication skills play into executive presence.
Well, I think they absolutely do, first of all. And to continue to answer one of your questions a moment ago, which was, is this something that you always have?
Right.
I think it's a learned skill. And learned, I mean, by osmosis when you were growing up. my father was a minister, my mother was a social worker. So there was a lot of conversation in our home at the dinner table. So those skills were developed early on by those experiences. And I think that just as we are not born knowing how to speak effectively in front of a group of people, we're also not born knowing how to be a leader. We're also not born with executive presence. Mm-hmm. It is something that is learned. And I love this question about executive presence because it's a constant theme, whether I'm working one-on-one or in workshops with people. But, what is it? And I think it is a skill that you develop. It is a skill that you can build on and cultivate. It's not something that's a trait. It's not like you're born with executive presence. And I do believe that it's a combination of a number of things. But first and foremost, you know it when you see it, right? You know when somebody has presence. You can feel it, you can see it, and you also know when it's not there. So to me, when somebody has that presence, it's an appealing physical appearance. Yes, we are visual people for the most part. Now, I'm not saying model perfect, please. I'm not saying model perfect, but it is an appealing physical appearance. It's also confident body language. Confident body language. It's assertive communication skills, which is very different than aggressive, but assertive communication skills. And also, this is my favorite piece of it. It's a positive, engaging energy that people feel, and they're attracted to that energy. And that, to me, is what executive presence kind of is, a combination of all of those things that you can learn and cultivate and practice.
Yeah. And I love that you don't shy away from any element of that, because I think there is a sense of like the executive presence begins when someone walks into the room. They haven't even 100%. Opened their mouth yet, right? Yes. So it's kind of, and it's not just the image but to your point about we see with our eyes first, then it's the energy that they're carrying in. And that, I think that's palpable. We've all watched somebody walk into a room and just the energy in the room shifts. It changes, right? It expands or it contracts depending on what their energy is. And there's power in that. And that's something I think we all can be mindful of, is what is the energy that we're bringing into a room? How do we sort of cultivate that so that it amplifies our executive presence before we even say a word? Right? Exactly. We don't have to rely on our words.
Well, think about this. So when I'm working with clients also, I love to share this kind of research of information, because 65% of what we communicate, how we communicate, is non-verbal before you've said a single word. The other 35% is that verbal connection, the verbal cues, but the nonverbal, 65%. And so it's the choices that you make and the skills that you use, the verbal, the nonverbal, it all comes together. And I also have Liz's 4 C's. Number 1 is confidence. Number 2 is your content, knowing your content when you do have to speak, having clarity of that content when you speak. Can everyone understand you? And being conversational, which really means owning who you are. And when you walk into a room, are you smiling, or are you holding your phone and dealing with something else instead of looking up and making eye contact and smiling at people? Are you carrying yourself with posture? People don't think that these things matter, but they convey a message and communicate who you are and your own feelings, self-worth, self-esteem, how you feel about yourself and your confidence. And man, that can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And you don't get to turn it off, because biologically, right, as sort of creatures interacting with each other, so much of that is subconscious. So much of our responsiveness to that is conditioned. And we can argue like, oh, we wish it were different, but you can't turn it off. It's like, those are the rules of how it works. And so we either play by them or we don't. We'll drop those 4 C's into the show notes so people know exactly what they are.
Number 1 is confidence. Number 2 is content, knowing your content really well, and also making sure that you put the story together well. Number 3 is clarity of that content. Can everyone understand it? And then delivering in a conversational way. 4 C's.
Love it. Love it. One of the phrases that we use sometimes when we're talking about executive presence, and I love this phrase actually, is an ability to own the room, right? Somebody who can own the room, we feel like there's a leadership energy behind it. People will follow them. There's a sense of like having influence through that. So what do you think it means to you to own the room? And what are some ways that women especially can exude that energy? Is there anything different about that?
It's just everything we were just talking about. It's making sure that you have that appealing physical appearance and you have confident body language when you walk in. Are you smiling? Are you holding yourself? Are you rushing in and have bags and briefcases and computers and shoes and everything, and you look discombobulated? Think about when you walk into a room for a meeting. Are you walking in calmly or are you walking in rushed? Have you planned enough time to get there? Or are you running from one to the other? I mean, it's those little things that help you own the room and let other people go, whoa, that person's got presence and command. And they haven't even said anything. They've just walked in the room.
As soon as you say that, you think about how, like in our real lives, right? Let's say you work in an office and you're just running from meeting to meeting.
Yes.
And that absence of what I call a threshold ritual, right, is what causes you to sort of trail in the energy from the last encounter into this next one. So you are still on the phone trying to wrap up the text or check the email or handle and that it whether it's true or not, it telegraphs the impression that that she doesn't have it all together, right? She's behind, she's scattered. And so just these little clicks that are like, how do I close out one place? I'd rather walk in 2 minutes late and be fully there than sort of be frantically trying to land in the next encounter.
I work a lot with people also in time management. And I want to share with those who are with us today a few things. First of all, do we really need everything to be a 1-hour meeting, in person or virtually? Chances are we don't. And if we're really organized, it can probably be 45 or 50 minutes. Now, let's imagine you have 4 of those in a day that were once an hour and are now 45 minutes. You have just gained an hour of time.
Absolutely.
And even in those 15 minutes, it means, okay, I want to make some notes from this last meeting. Let me look at my notes for the next meeting. Let me walk down the hall. Let me go to the bathroom, for heaven's sake. A little wellness break in there. And walk in refreshed. Doesn't need to be 30 minutes. Can it be 20 minutes? Now, that means you manually have to go in and change the invitation on the calendar. I get it. But I'm telling you, it is a powerful little simple technique that can make a huge impact on your day.
Yes.
And the other thing that I love to do is I tell people, create a sacred hour. I don't care whether it's once a week, twice a week. Nobody can touch that 1 hour, not your assistant, not your partners, not your colleagues, not your spouse. Nobody can touch that 1 hour. Now you get to choose what you do with that time. Is that a catch-up time for emails? Is that preparation time for a presentation or a pitch or a speech that I have to give? Whatever that is, you are in charge of you. Nobody else is. And people forget that. And you have to once again regain that permission for yourself. Re-give yourself that permission. And wait a minute.
Yes. And Liz, you saying the words, you are in charge of you. I just want to bold and underline, because I think that sits at the center of your ability to do all of this, right? When you embody that belief of you are in charge of you, then you get to reset the time of your meetings. You get to say, I'm worth the wellness break. You get to say, I'm going to gather myself before I come in. And that it kind of exudes from the inside out. There's leadership of self first before leading others. And that's where that presence is really grounded. So I love that quotable from you. It's about, what I hear in a lot of what you're saying is I hear you giving us permission to embody our own competence, our own desires and power and ambition, the things that sort of sometimes I think we shy away from or apologize for. Why do you think that matters?
What you're really talking about is owning who we are. Each of us has to learn how to own who we are. And that's what my entire book is about. Dare to own you, taking your authenticity and dreams into your next chapter. Learn how to own you. And in fact, at the end of every chapter, I have time to reflect, because I really want people to step back again, put themselves in that witness position and begin to ask themselves, am I being authentic? Am I being real? Am I owning me? Am I using my voice? Am I giving myself permission? Am I apologizing for things that I do not need to be apologizing for? There's so many ways that we disown who we are. And we are the writers, directors, and producers of our lives. We have to take that control back. And so much of society, I think, particularly for women, has not allowed us to do that for so many, I don't even know, generations.
Yes.
Generations. And we're conditioned not to speak our truth. We're conditioned not to voice an opinion. We're conditioned not to use our voice. And so we have to unlearn some things in order to relearn positive, healthy habits that allow us to own who we are and be that best authentic self. Because I truly think that when you own who you are, you truly now have the opportunity to live your best life, whatever that means for you. And that definition is different for everybody.
Amen. Amen. And this might be the one thing that gets easier with aging. Like, I think a lot, right, we're fighting aging every step of the way, but I think this might be the one thing we actually sort of instinctively get better at the older we get, as we're in that second act. Yeah. That finally we're like, I'm willing to test the limits of really showing up a little differently and sort of moving closer and closer to myself as these acts unfold. You, at the beginning of this episode, walked us through that evolution for you to, getting closer and closer to the work you really wanted to do that more fully embodies you, right? You're speaking other people's words. Now you're speaking your own. And that, I think that evolution kind of metaphorically is happening for all of us, right? As we're moving through chapters of careers and of life, that we're really giving voice to our own opinions and ideas. I hope so. At least I hope that's what we're encouraging women to do.
Yes, yeah, I hope so too.
I want to make sure that people know where to find you, your work, and your book online. Can you share those places with us?
Thank you for asking that, Cheryl, and I greatly appreciate it. Yes. First of all you have to do is go to lizbrunner.com. That's LIZBRUNNER.com. And right there on the homepage, you'll be able to find how to connect and get my book. You'll also, if you go down to the media column, you'll be able to find my podcast, which is Live Your Best Life with Liz Brunner. It's all about transformation and creating next chapters for yourself. I've had amazing guests on the show, so I encourage people to check it out. We're in, I think, 140 some countries and very excited about that. So you can find it there. Or I'm also on all the major directories, if I didn't say that already, so you can find me anywhere. And also, even on that homepage, you'll see a drop-down menu, or you can go directly to BrunnerAcademy.com. And that's my online learning platform. I have a number of courses on there about public speaking, including my flagship course, which is How to Be a Rockstar Public Speaker. Now, that's not just for people who think, oh, I've got to give a speech or I have to give a pitch or a presentation. It includes everything, including being a panelist, being a moderator. Oh, yes, maybe you have to give a wedding toast. Okay, it could help you with that as well. And we have two different offerings with that, one of which is just the course. And then one, if you have completed the course, you have the option of the VIP version, which is you get 3 virtual sessions with one of the coaches on my team. Might be me, but it might be somebody else. But we are also offering right now to those who are listening and to who will follow this later on, a very special coupon code, promo code, which is BESTYOU, BESTYOU. Put that in the notes, please.
I will.
Yes, you'll get 15% off any of the courses. And also, we added at the time that my book was published, back in November of 2021, 4 different courses that we call the DARE collection. And they're very simple, easy courses. One is Dare to Go for Your Goals. The other is Dare to Shift from Procrastination to Motivation. Dare to Rise Above Tough Times, which is all about resilience. And then also Dare to Find Peace of Mind, which is kind of a wellness meditation. Because some people say, I can't meditate.
Right.
Well, look, I'm not saying you have to be and ah and sit cross-legged. It's just about being mindful and learning how to do that in everyday life. So I encourage people to check it out. I hope that they'll take advantage of the coupon code as well, but they can find it all on lizbrunner.com.
Oh, Liz, I love your energy. I love your message. And I just think you are such a shining example of what's possible when we do dare to own ourselves and continue to evolve. So thank you for sharing all of this with our listeners. I so appreciate it.
And thank you for having me on. And I want to thank those who are listening right now. Thank you for being here. I know that there might be some questions and hopefully we'll get to answer some of those. So thank you to all of you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for sticking with me to the end of this one. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Liz and hearing, first of all, some of her great stories and also her ideas and insights about what we can do in our own lives to leverage more powerful communication and have more influence. I know that that's something that creates a lot of upside for us in our careers as well as in our personal lives. So I'm really happy to have been able to share this conversation with Liz with you today. If you are new to the Brilliant Balance community and you're just finding your way here, make sure you come find us in our Facebook group. It's just called Brilliant Balance. When you search groups, we'll welcome you into that. You can follow along on Instagram at brilliant_balance, or you can find me at cschoolnikki on Instagram. And make sure that you're subscribed to the weekly, which is just go to brilliant-balance.com/weekly, and we will send you a weekly dose of inspiration and insight straight to your digital doorstep. All right, that's all for today, my friends. Till next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.